Purdue fans, welcome into the channel. This is the Big Time Boiler. I appreciate you stopping by. It's been a minute since I made a video, but with the offseason in football, I wanted to go ahead and do a transfer portal breakdown of Purdue so far. The Purdue Boilermakers have added quite a few new players, and they've lost some good ones too, but mainly it's been positive more than negative. In this video, I'll do a quick breakdown of who Purdue is bringing in and what kind of contributions can we expect. So with that, again, appreciate you stopping by. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video. With that, we'll get on to it right now. Who's Purdue brought in this transfer portal? So pretty good so far. Purdue has improved their team, in my opinion, with Ryan Walters at the helm. Ryan Walters, in my opinion, is doing an outstanding job so far. Would give his grade a B+ at least this offseason. Recruiting in itself has picked up, and they're getting better quality recruits to visit campus, and that includes transfers. So with that, we'll kind of just go over who Purdue brought in. At quarterback, obviously Hudson Card is coming from the University of Texas. He was a big-time get, was Ryan Walters' first priority, basically, to get him on board. Once he hired Graham Harrell, those two both met on a plane, went straight to Hudson Card's house, and got him to commit. I've seen Hudson Card ranked as high as number 2 when it comes to transfer portal rankings at the quarterback position. Hudson Card also was ranked, I think, top 60 in his class and was the number 2 dual-ranked quarterback right behind a guy named Bryce Young. May have heard of him, just went number 1 in the draft. At the other quarterback spot, they brought in Bennett Meredith to be the backup, at least so far. Redshirt freshman actually looked pretty promising this spring for Arizona State. They, however, have a new coaching staff as well. Then they brought in multiple quarterbacks, so he was kind of buried in the depth chart. But per sources and insiders of Arizona State, he looked pretty good. So he's a pretty intriguing backup. At the wide receiver position, I think Purdue got 2 difference makers that are very under the radar. You got a guy in Jamal Edrin from FAU who had an outstanding redshirt freshman season for FAU last year. Over 600 yards, multiple touchdowns, had 1 catch for 39 yards against Purdue actually last year, and a couple throws over his head. The other player is Corey Gamage, who is coming from Marshall, was actually committed to Memphis in the transfer portal in January. Visited Purdue a few weeks ago, committed to them. Player that has been very impressive the last couple of years with over 700 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns the last few seasons. Both Edrin and Gamage are big receivers, physical receivers, 6'3" and 220 plus for both of them. Watch their videos. They stand out. Great route runners, very physical, come to the ball, get the ball at tie point. I think they're going to be very impressive. Purdue does not have an alpha receiver in this room yet, at least one that's yet to emerge. These two very well could be number 1 and number 2. On the offensive line, Purdue did lose some good players. Spencer Holstech was the first. He surprisingly left right after, I think Jeff Brom left for Louisville. He decided to go to UCLA. They lost Sanel Finyao, who started a little bit last year at guard. They lost him to Arizona State during the spring. And they've also lost Eric Miller, who went to Louisville recently. 3 good players, 3 guys that could have started if they all stayed. However, Eric Miller did lose his starting spot last year, but then Daniel Johnson got hurt and he retook it. So, and Finau was also another backup that started. So really the biggest loss there is Spencer Holstech. Purdue did bring in 4 offensive linemen to replace those, including Jalen Grant, who came from Bowling Green this spring he was here. Jalen Grant, Luke Griffin, who just committed from Missouri. He was more of a top reserve for them. Who is also obviously familiar with offensive line coach Marcus Johnson, who came from Missouri. Preston Nichols came from UNLV. He's a 6-year COVID guy, had a good year last year for UNLV. Ben Farrell, who's actually from Indiana Wesleyan, who actually might be, though, the most high potential person on this team. Had some NFL scouts in looking at him, played on the outside at Indiana Wesleyan, could play on the outside at Purdue with some of the depth problems at tackle and health concerns, but was initially brought in to play on the inside. Could be a starter at guard. So those are your offensive linemen. Again, Jalen Grant, Luke Griffin, Preston Nichols, and Ben Farrell. On the defensive line, they brought in Malik Langham, who came from Vanderbilt. It's kind of more of a reserve there. He was actually a very highly touted recruit who chose Florida over Alabama, transferred from Florida to Vanderbilt. last year here. We'll see if he can contribute. Good size on him. Jeffrey Imba, who came from Auburn, who was the #1 ranked JUCO recruit last year, who played pretty well for Auburn when he played, but he did not have that many snaps. But I think he'll be a big-time force for Purdue on the defensive line. Anthony Brown came from the safety spot from Arkansas. He was here this spring. Salim Turner Muhammad is one of your corners. Played some starting roles with Stanford, but mainly was the top reserve. He'll be here this summer. Marquise Wilson, very excited about him. Cornerback from Penn State. Played a bit two-way, but with Penn State at wide receiver as well a few years ago. Had a pretty good year last year in the reserve role. Probably will be a starter for Purdue, and a very good one at that. Braxton Myers, 4-star recruit from Ole Miss that signed this spring. He transferred following his coach, Sam Carter, to Purdue. Another transfer from Ole Miss might be committing at any point. Markevius Brown, who has a few years left, was actually, I believe, starting for cornerback or for Ole Miss at cornerback here this spring. So he'll be a welcome addition. And then Sean Stevens, who is from D2 West Liberty, who was one of the leading the leading interception getter last year, and also a return man in D2. He will possibly be at Purdue if granted a waiver. That actually, if those two commit, the last two guys I talked about, Purdue will be full at 85 scholarships. So that is Purdue's incoming transfer class so far. 15 players. And I forgot actually a long snapper from Missouri is also on his way to Purdue. Could there be more portal action? Absolutely. Buckle up. It could be a crazy ride over the next few weeks, but I think Purdue pretty much has its roster in place. I will keep you updated if any changes happen. Keep in tune to this channel in the coming weeks. We'll do more position breakdowns, go over the schedule, and kind of get more in depth with Purdue sports, football and basketball included. So with that, I'd like to thank you for stopping by. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Boiler up.